して青く見えるのだろうか。黄色い声上げて生まれた記憶の静けさ。青と黄色が混ざり合ってできた緑には花を、花には水を、僕には夢を。ゼロに達して今をかけて流れる赤い血のよ。線を引いて殻を割って咲いた花の模様をつなげてし筆を持って取り戻してく命。目に見えないルールへ今イコールイコールを探しに行く。どうか純粋な始まりを衝動に変わる始まりを生命力を三原色で広げて白紙の際過去を待って築き上げ気づかされ黒くなって今で決して積み上げ次はどこへ。ああ僕らの明日に色があったら目に見えるようにさ描いていく。
Dok, pwede ka ba magkwento about gene therapy?
Medical science has detected many human disease related sa defective genes like Down syndrome, and this kind of diseases di kaya magamot by traditional method like taking medicines. And gene therapy ang nakikitang potential na paraan para makagamot sa related human illness na ito.
So, Doc, ano po yung gene therapy?
So gene therapy is an experimental technique that use genes to treat or prevent disease. In the future, this technique ay magamit namin mga doctors to treat a disorder by inserting genes into patient cells instead of using surgery or drugs.
Doc, anong ginawa ng team of researchers in 2015?
In 2015 kasi, a team of researchers at Harvard Medical Schools and Boston Children's Hospital stated that they were able to restore basic hearing of genetically deep mice by using gene therapy. And Boston Children's Hospital research also reported that they have restored a higher level of hearing down to 25 decibels, which is actually equivalent of whisper.
Doc, when human gene therapy was actually first realized?
Human gene therapy was actually first realized in 1971 when the first recombinant DNA were performed. Dito, it simplified a view of insertions of foreign DNA into patient tissues that hope eradicate third-kidney disease. And this was actually inspired by the successful of DNA technology. Without doubt, gene therapy is the most promising, possibly unfavorable medical field being studied. And gene therapy is used to correct defective genes in order to cure a disease and or help your body better fight disease.
Hello everyone, I'm Nurse Desiree, but you can call me Nurse Des. So I'm here to discuss and answer the question, what are the basic process of gene therapy and how does it work? So now, how do genes in our cells instruct the body to work? Cells are the basic building blocks of all living things. Our body alone is composed of many different types of cells that forms various tissues and organs and carry out special functions essential for life. Cells are made up of many parts like a house with many rooms. Each of it has a different functions. The nucleus of the cells serve as the cell command center. So now, let us all imagine a nucleus as the kitchen of the house. The nucleus hosts our genetic material called DNA, which is just like a cookbook contains of many recipes, or our genes. Thousands of different genes can be found in our DNA, and this will guide and instruct the cell on how to make proteins. Different proteins can be imagined as different dishes or meals. Proteins do most of the work in the cells. Sometimes, there may be an error in the recipe to make a specific protein. The protein coming from the incorrect recipe will likely not work properly. These errors are usually called genetic mutations and can cause medical conditions known as genetic disorders. So now, let's proceed to the question I've got from my Twitter account. One curious netizen asked this question: Nurse Des, what are the basic process of gene therapy and how does it work? So, gene therapy is a therapy that has the potential to treat or prevent the progression of genetic disorders, depending on the problem that is present. Scientists can use gene therapy to remove or replace faulty elements of a gene. This is called gene editing, or to prevent the production of a specific protein, or we can call it gene silencing, or to transfer a full copy of gene to correct a faulty or missing one, or we can call it gene transfer. In order to transfer genes or replace incorrect ones, gene therapy uses a vehicle called vector. The vector function very much like a delivery package with an address that will deliver a correct recipe for a specific genes or transgenes right into our houses. The package will deliver to the kitchen of the house or to the nucleus to produce a protein of interest, or a protein that our body needs that is either incorrect or missing. We can think of viruses as natural vectors, as they have the ability to transfer genes when they infect people. Scientists use different types of viruses, vectors, but these are modified so they can cause disease when used in people. Adeno-associated viruses, or AAVs, are among the most promising vectors to be used in gene therapy because they are relatively harmless viruses. AAVs are usually very small, therefore, they have a limited packaging capacity, meaning that AAVs can only contain and therefore deliver relatively small genes. This characteristic may limit the use of AAVs in genetic disorders that require the transfer and the correction of large genes. AAVs can only contain recipe or genes that are no longer than approximately 5,000 characters or letters. Thus, great efforts have been directed towards identifying strategies to overcome these limitations. Shortening the length of the recipes while keeping all the most important information of the original recipe is one of the approaches commonly used. Now let's all imagine that the gene we want to correct, replace, or transfer is responsible for the production of a cake in our cells. We would not need just the recipe and ingredients to bake the cake with we. For example, we would need to turn on the oven in the kitchen and set it to the right temperature. Gene therapy also relies on a system that delivers all the necessary tools to bake the cake. The summary of the recipe that we know is called transgenes. A key-operated switch to turn the oven on, known as promoter, while the thermostat to maintain the desired temperature inside the oven, known as enhancer. The kit that allows our cells to bake a cake that, although it is not original one, but is still functional. Sometimes, if the original protein or cake was too big, the kit will allow our cell to bake a cupcake, a smaller version of protein but still functional. Now, to give you an ending statement about this lesson, in today's modern society, gene therapy is advancing rapidly, and it has the potential to revolutionize healthcare and transform the lives of people with serious life-threatening. That's all. Thank you.
Good day everyone, I'm Nurse Heidi and I'm here to discuss about types of gene therapy. There are two types of gene therapy. First is somatic gene therapy. Somatic gene therapy, it is insertion of therapeutic gene into somatic cells like fibroblast, myoblast, epithelial cells, nervous cells, glial cells, etc. This can correct the genetic defect in the patient. However, in somatic cell therapy, transgene cannot be passed onto the siblings, etc. Ang ibig sabihin ng somatic gene therapy, ito ay may abilidad na gumawa ng bagong genetic material o RNA na magiging kapalit o magiging kagaya ng somatic cell. Ang somatic gene therapy ay may kakayahang manggamot ng isang pasyente at hindi ito napapasa sa susunod na henerasyon. The second type of gene therapy is a germline therapy. Ito ay kapag ang DNA ay natatransfer sa cell na nagpo-produce ng reproductive cells, egg and sperm sa katawan. Ang germline therapy ay nagtatama ng gene na nagkukos ng sakit. Ito ay pwedeng maipasa mula sa henerasyon hanggang sa susunod na henerasyon. Ang germline therapy din ay inilalagay sa reproductive cells sa egg at sperm ng isang tao. May dalawang uri ang somatic gene therapy. Ito ay ex vivo at in vivo therapy. Ex vivo therapy is performed with the genetic alterations of patients' target cells happening outside of the body in a culture. Target cells from the patients are infected with recombinant virus containing the desired therapeutic gene. These modified cells are then reintroduced into the patient's body where they produce the needed proteins that correspond to the inserted gene. May dalawang uri ang somatic gene therapy. Ito ay ex vivo at in vivo therapy. Ex vivo therapy is performed with the genetic alterations of patients' target cells happening outside of the body in a culture. Target cells from the patients are infected with recombinant virus containing the desired therapeutic gene. These modified cells are then reintroduced into the patient's body where they produce the needed proteins that correspond to the inserted gene. In vivo gene therapy, it involves introductions of therapeutic DNA directly into the patient's body. The DNA is introduced by cell-specific direction injection into tissue in need. DNA in the form of a plasmid vector is introduced by a dermal vaccination. Modified liposomes are not currently used for gene therapy, but they will likely be the next advancement in therapeutic gene delivery as cell-specific receptor-mediated DNA carriers. Once inside the body and in contact with the specifically targeted cells, our inserted DNA is incorporated into the tissue cells where it encodes the productions of the needed protein.
Hello, ako nga pala ang inyong Nurse Ellie. At i-discuss ko ngayon ang stem cell gene therapy. Ano nga bang stem cell gene therapy? O isang mother cell na may potensyal na maging anumang uri ng cell sa katawan. Ang isa sa mga pangunahing katangian ng mga stem cell ay ang kanilang kakayahang mag-self-renew o magparami habang pinapanatili ang potensyal na bumuo sa iba pang mga uri ng mga cell. Ang mga stem cell ay maaaring maging mga selula ng dugo, puso, buto, balat, kalamnan, utak at iba pa. mayroong iba't ibang mga mapagkukunan ng mga stem cell. Ngunit, lahat ng mga uri ng mga stem cell ay may kaparehong kapasidad na bumuo sa maraming uri ng mga cell. May dalawang uri ng stem cell. Isa rito ay ang embryonic stem cell at somatic stem cell. Ano nga ba ang embryonic stem cell? Ano nga ba ang embryonic stem cell? Ayon kay Crosta, taong 2013, ang mga embryonic stem cell ay nagmula sa isang 4 o 5 araw na gulang na embryo ng tao na nasa diastasis phase ng pagunlad. Ang mga embryo ay karaniwang mga extra na nilikha sa mga klinika ng IVF o tinatawag na in vitro fertilization, kung saan ang mga itlog ay pinatataba sa isang test tube. Pagkatapos ay itinatanim sa isang babae. Ang somatic stem cell naman, ayon kay Crosta taong 2013, ang somatic stem cells ay mga cell na umiiral sa buong katawan pagkatapos ng embryonic development at matatagpuan sa loob ng iba't ibang uri ng tissue. Ang mga stem cell na ito ay matatagpuan sa mga tissue tulad ng utak, bone marrow, dugo, mga daluyan ng dugo, mga kalamnan ng kalansay, balat at tatay. Nanatili sila sa isang hindi nahahati na estado sa loob ng maraming taon hanggang sa ma-activate ng sakit o pinsala sa tissue. Ang mga stem cell na ito ay maaaring hatiin o i-renew ang sarili nang walang katapusan na nagbibigay daan sa kanila na makabuo ng isang hanay ng mga uri ng cell mula sa pinagmulang organ o kahit na muling buuin ang mga original na organ. Sa pangkalahatan ay iniisip na ang mga adult o somatic stem cell ay limitado sa kanilang kakayahang mag-iba batay sa kanilang pinagmulang tissue, ngunit mayroong ilang katibayan na magmumungkahi na maaari silang mag-iba upang maging iba pang mga uri ng cell.
Good day everyone, I'm Nurse Rina and I will discuss the bioethics of gene therapy. There are ethical issues involved in gene therapy. First, how good and bad use of gene therapy. Good uses of gene therapy include altering genes causing dangerous genetic disorders. And the bad uses will be altering genes that relate to physical characteristics like eye color, height, personality traits, and etc. Second is, who decides which traits are normal and which constitute a disability or disorder. A geneticist is someone who has the authority to make decisions. A medical geneticist is a scientist or physician who studies how genes and heredity influence health and disease. And also, geneticists may or may not have direct patient contact, but he or she works in the medical field to lower the risk of genetic disorders and conditions and to lessen their impact on individuals, families, and groups. Third, will the high cost of gene therapy make society less accepting of people who is different? For me, is no, because nowadays, if you are unable to obtain the therapy, you will simply need to seek assistance from others who are willing and able to help you. The paradigm used in the price-setting approach, on the other hand, is costly. The cost of productions is weighed against the value of life saved or improved quality of life over a specified time. Fourth is, could be the widespread use of gene therapy make society less accepting of people who are different? For me is yes, because gene therapy could appear in the selections of traits to expand the genetics of a society. And lastly is, should people be allowed to use gene therapy to enhance basic human traits such as height, intelligence, or athletic ability? For me is no, because there is no need. We all have our abilities and potential. We are capable of doing things. So, for me, gene therapy is unnecessary. That's all. Thank you.
Gene therapy is a method that may treat or cure genetic-related human illness. These are the two forms of gene therapy: One is somatic gene therapy, which is involved sa pag-manipulate ng genes in cells na kung saan makakatulong sa pasyente but not inherited to the next generation, and it also can be defined as the ability to introduce genetic material or RNA into appropriate cell type of tissues. And ang somatic therapy is target gene and specific type of cells like lung cells, skin cells, blood cells, etc. The other one is germline therapy, which is involved sa genetic medications of germ cells. Germline is when DNA is transferred into the cells that produce reproductive cells, egg or sperm in the body. Yung ganitong klaseng therapy is allow for the correction of disease causing gen variants that are certain to be passed down from generation to generations. And germline applied to embryos. Ito po yung mga ethical issues. These are the many ethical issues on gene therapy. Some of these issues are tungkol sa sino yung nag-authority, whose authority or power to decide which is yung paggagamot sa tao ay naiiba or binago by using gene therapy. At ang iba pang added concern are discriminatory effect of those who may not or cannot avail gene therapy. Mga ilang bansa lang po ang inapprove ang pagsasagawa ng gene therapy. Gene therapy po is not officially legal in other country. Base sa na-research ko, China and UK ang na-approve sa paggamit ng gene therapy. And it's a germline genome but limited pa rin na gene therapy product ang pwedeng isagawa. Just like sa US din, ang gene therapy ay pwedeng magamit but limited din. And other concern of gene therapy is di avail ng mga tao yung ganitong klaseng paggagamot. Ang gene therapy is cost around $373,000 in single dose to 2.1 million. Gene therapy is part of new technology or advanced technology sa ngayon, no, that used for treating disease. Ito ay nakakatulong sa atin, ngunit meron itong bad outcome na dapat natin isipin.